Olá pessoal, sejam bem-vindos hoje a mais uma transmissão em nosso canal. Hoje então acompanharemos a reprise do que foi então o último voo, né, do Delta 4 Rave da United Launch Alliance, né, que teve seu lançamento realizado hoje, né, após aquela tentativa de lançamento, então que foi no dia 28 de março. Então 9 de abril hoje, né, aconteceu aí a sua despedida do Delta 4 Rave, com a missão Nrol-70. E hoje vamos acompanhar então o reprise na íntegra de como foi então este grande dia, né, o dia final então aí do Delta 4 Rave. Lembrando que hoje também teremos aí a missão Starlink a partir da meia-noite e 55, né, do dia 10 de abril. E também no dia 10 de abril, na parte do início da manhã, né, a partir das 4h55 da manhã, vamos acompanhar a nova tentativa para o teste de voo então do Angara A5 da Rússia, né, aí testando então seu novo veículo, tá? Então não perca, 4h55, Angara A5 e 55 minutos do dia 10, né, Starlink, missão Starlink, tá certo? Não se esqueça de se inscrever no canal, de curtir, comentar e compartilhar. Meu nome então é William Pessoa e vamos juntos aí acompanhar então como foi, né, o lançamento então aí do Delta 4 Rave, né, o último Delta 4 Rave da história da carreira, né? Então vamos aí acompanhar então o que foi, né, na íntegra para vocês. Então fiquem aí.
Good afternoon. I'm Andrea Lenhoff. I'm a systems engineering leader at ULA and your host for the final Delta launch carrying Nrol-70 for the National Reconnaissance Office. I'm here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where liftoff is currently scheduled for 12:53 p.m. Eastern. In addition to watching our webcast, you can also follow live mission progress at ulalaunch.com. The count is currently in a planned hold. We have 2 planned holds in our launch count, which give our team additional time to resolve any issues prior to entering the terminal count. At this time, the team is not working any issues and we're proceeding towards an on-time liftoff. Live mission coverage will continue through payload fairing jettison, which occurs about 6.5 minutes after liftoff. To tell us more about today's mission customer, let's go to ULA's Ben Chilton over at a viewing location on the causeway.
Thanks, Andrea. I'm Ben Chilton, an ordnance engineer at ULA, and I'm joining you from the ITL Causeway just a few miles south of Space Launch Complex 37. There's a lot of people out here on the causeway that have come to watch this last launch of the Delta IV Heavy, and it's a beautiful Florida day for us to witness this rocket take off. Today's mission is for the National Reconnaissance Office, or NRO. The NRO is the leader in developing, acquiring, launching, and operating the nation's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance satellites to secure and expand America's advantage in space. The NRO-L70 mission will strengthen the NRO's ability to provide a wide range of timely intelligence information to national decision makers, warfighters, and intelligence analysts to protect the nation's vital interests and support humanitarian efforts worldwide. Back to you, Andrea.
This is the 16th and final flight of the Delta IV Heavy rocket and ULA's 160th launch. Here's more about this heavy lift rocket.
Designed by ULA's engineering team and built by our skilled technicians, the Delta IV Heavy rocket, once fully stacked, stands 235 feet and weighs 1.6 million pounds fully fueled. At the base of the rocket is the triple booster first stage, powered by 3 RS-68A engines, which together produce more than 2 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. Atop the center booster is the Delta Cryogenic Second Stage, or DCSS, powered by an RL-10B2 engine. Spacecraft are encapsulated inside a 5-meter diameter metallic tri-sector payload fairing. With production of the final Delta complete, the rocket travels from ULA's factory in Alabama to the launch site in Cape Canaveral on ULA's rocket ship. Once in Florida, ULA's launch operations team begins a series of events leading to today's countdown. The process begins by transporting and lifting the booster and DCSS onto the launch table at Space Launch Complex 37. Then, the encapsulated payload fairing is lifted and mated to the DCSS. Once fully assembled, the launch countdown begins when 40 hydraulic cylinders at pressures nearing 3,500 psi raise the
L minus 25, T minus 10.
PNE LC.
Go ahead.
Proceed with final pneumatic preps.
Roger.
With this launch, we are remembering an NRO teammate. Here is Mission Director Colonel Eric Zaribaninski.
This is the MD. This afternoon's NROL-70 launch is dedicated to the memory of Colonel Edward Chip Zakrzewski. Chip dedicated his career to the advancement of space launch and to the success of NRO missions. He was a fierce advocate and leader for the Office of Space Launch and in the broader space launch community. Chip was the OSL director for the first Delta IV Heavy launch, so it is only fitting that the last Delta IV Heavy launch is dedicated to him. To our leader, mentor, and friend, Godspeed, Chip. MD out.
LC concurs. LD.
LD concurs.
MD.
MD concurs.
ABE, are you in a position to perform the task as the anomaly team has directed?
Affirmative.
Roger.
T minus 8 minutes.
ALC, configure CCTV for launch monitoring.
Today's flight is also dedicated
Roger.
in memory of
CME,
colleagues who are
configure
no longer with us.
CCTV for video
Let's
recording.
remember our teammates.
Roger.
T-minus 5 minutes.
This is Delta Mission Control at T-minus 418. We anticipate entering the hold in just a few moments.
T-minus 4 minutes and holding. This is a 15-minute built-in hold.
LC switch to not ready position.
Since 1960, Delta rockets have been an integral part of America's space program. The on-orbit assets it has launched have improved life across the globe. Let's take a look. The Delta program has been an important part of many of our employees' careers. We recently spoke with employees about what the Delta rocket has meant to them. After liftoff, the Delta IV Heavy will head east from Space Launch Complex 37. Here's a look at today's ascent. As we continue the countdown to launch, let's head back over to Ben Chilton on the causeway.
Thanks, Andrea. I'm currently joined by a number of people who are very excited to watch the last liftoff of this magnificent rocket. We're about 1.5 miles from Slick 37, and when we reach T0, it'll take about 8 seconds for the sound to reach us, though we'll already be able to see Delta lifting off the pad. Currently, the weather conditions look great for launch, but I'll pass it back to you, Andrea, for the Space Launch Delta weather forecast for today.
Thanks, Ben. The forecast for this afternoon's launch is looking good. The probability of violating launch constraints is 10%. Ground winds are 14 to 22 knots out of the southeast, and the temperature is 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Our primary concerns for launch today are ground winds and the cumulus crowd rule violation.
RLM, verified red line monitor and vent table are in the correct configuration per terminal count.
Verified.
L minus 9 minutes.
Performing a hold authority comm check. LSIC RF,
Loud and clear.
loud and clear as well. ATD,
ATD copies loud and clear.
loud and clear as well. Comm check complete.
Launch on time verified.
Roger. LC switch to ready position. All steps are complete prior to the status check.
L minus 8 minutes.
We remain in the planned 15-minute hold as we continue towards liftoff. In a few moments, launch conductor Scott Barney will pull the launch team for the final go to pick up the count. 28 engineers and managers are pulled for system status and readiness to proceed. This is the final status check for all Delta vehicle systems, ground systems, spacecraft, and the U.S. Space Force Eastern Range. The vehicle system readiness pull includes electrical systems, hydraulics, pneumatics, propulsion systems, flight control, and propellants. Let's listen in as Scott Barney performs the final pulling.
Del minus 7 minutes.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. First stage systems, propulsion.
Go.
Hydraulics.
Go.
Locks.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Second stage systems, locks.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Electrical systems, airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFTS.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
Com.
Go.
GCQ.
Go.
Operation support.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
Umbilicals.
Go.
Hazgas.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Red line monitor.
Go.
Mechanical engineering advisor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Ops safety manager.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief.
Go.
Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch director.
Launch vehicle is ready to launch.
Mission director.
You have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count.
Del minus 6.
ALC verified T0 is set for 16:53 Zulu.
Verified.
Polling is
MEQ
complete
established
and the
swing arm
team
lock
is
pins
go
full.
for launch. From T-minus 4 minutes until liftoff, you'll hear Scott Barney and the team performing the final steps in the countdown procedure. Several critical activities occur in the final minutes before launch, including verifying fuel tank levels and pressures in the 3 boosters and DCSS, in addition to arming the flight termination system. At T-minus 1 minute, the Range Operations Commander confirms the range is in a green condition for launch. At T-minus 15 seconds, the launch table HBOs at the base of the rocket are ignited to burn off excess hydrogen. At T-minus 7 seconds, the starboard engine is ignited. At T-minus 5 seconds, the port and center engines are ignited. Once the Delta IV Heavy lifts off, you'll hear flight commentator Rob
5
Gannon
minutes.
providing launch vehicle ascent data.
TD verify SV configure for launch.
TD on net 1, SV configure for launch.
Roger.
TD out.
Swing arm lock pins pulled.
Roger. All steps are complete prior to terminal count.
This is Delta Mission Control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. We anticipate releasing the hold in just a few moments.
T-minus 4 minutes and counting. Minus 3:55.
Ground pyros enabled.
3:50.
The countdown clock is resumed and we are go for launch at 12:53 p.m. Eastern. With liftoff approaching, we're raising the volume on our launch team so you can hear the final preps taking place.
Minus 3:32. $3.25.
Second stage lock, secure at flight level.
Minus 307. Minus 249.
FTS internal.
CBC locks at flight pressure and flight level.
T-minus 2 minutes. The rocket, payload, ground systems, and
Hydraulic pressure
eastern range are
1,000.
go for launch.
Vehicle internal. Launch sequencer start.
If you just joined us, I'm Andrea Lenhoff.
CBC
I'm your
LH2
host for
at
the
flight pressure
final
and flight
Delta
level.
launch today. Liftoff is currently scheduled for 12:53 p.m. Eastern.
140.
FCS launch enabled.
FPS armed.
Minus 120.
OCUs armed. FCS count started.
T-minus 1 minute.
Go for main engine
T-minus
start.
1 minute.
Rock report range status.
Range green.
Minus 50.
Second stage LH2 secure at flight level.
Minus 30.
Status check.
Go Delta.
Go NROL 70.
Minus 15.
Rofi ignition.
10.
T-minus
Mr. Start.
10,
8,
9,
7,
8, 7,
5,
6,
4,
5. We have ignition. 2, 1.
Lift off.
And liftoff of the final United Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy rocket, carrying NROL-70 for the National Reconnaissance Office and closing Delta's 6-decade legacy of excellence in space.
Or is at min power level. Port and starboard strap-on still operating at enhanced power level.
You are hearing the voice of Rob Gannon providing launch vehicle ascent data.
Parameters look good. Flight control disturbances look good. And we have fired the isolation pyro valve on second stage reactor control system. And first step in readying that system for operation. Continue to look good. And we've passed through Mach 1 and Mach 2. Normal disturbances there, everything looks good. All three boosters operating as expected. All three boosters operating as expected. Everything looks good. And we fired the pyro valve, pressurizing the reaction control system on the second stage. Pressure's coming up. Everything looks good there. What we're looking for is going to closed loop guidance. Up at 3 or 4 seconds. And we've started closed loop guidance. Vehicle maneuvering as expected. All three engines continue to look good. And we are 3 minutes to Corbico. And the vehicle is now 1/2 its liftoff weight. All three engines operating normally, everything looking good.
Vehicle's now 29 nautical miles in altitude, 64 miles downrange, traveling at 5,300 miles per hour. Everything continues to look good. And we've just passed through the Kármán line, reaching 100 kilometers in altitude. Everything looking good. 2 minutes to Corbico. Coming up on throttle down on the strap-ons. And we've begun throttling down the strap-on boosters in preparation for cutoff. We've now achieved min-power level on the strap-ons. And cutoff. We have cutoff port and starboard boosters coming up on strap-on, and we have strap-on separation. Disturbances look good. Throttled up the core booster. We're now at EPL on the single stage booster. And we've re-enabled steering following separation of the strap-ons. Everything looking good.
We just heard confirmation of port and starboard booster jettison. We have about a minute and a half until we reach our next mission event, booster engine cutoff.
On the RL-10. One minute to Corbico. Housing temps respond as expected on the RL-10, and we've started LH2 boost phase chill down. Housing temps responding as expected. Flight control disturbances are small, and the core RS-68 continues to operate as expected. About 20 seconds to our next mark event, throttling down the core booster in preparation for BECO. And core booster is throttling down, coming up on booster engine cutoff. And we have BECO. Cut off on the booster, everything looking good. And state operation occurred right as expected. NEDs have deployed. And we have pre-start, start, and full thrust. RL-10 is up and running normally. Everything looking good. Enabled steering of the second stage. Second stage operating normally. Coming up on bearing separation. About 10 seconds away from fairing sep. 5 seconds to fairing sep, and we have fairing separation. Disturbances look good. Upper stage is operating normally. And once again, steering has been re-enabled after the separation event.
This is Delta Mission Control at T plus 6 minutes and 55 seconds. We just heard flight commentator Rob Gannon confirm the successful completion of the early phase of today's flight, and all systems continue to operate nominally. While the mission has just begun, we did just see liftoff of the last Delta rocket. Here's ULA President and CEO Tory Bruno.
Well, good afternoon. A lot of you know that the Delta IV Heavy is, of course, the most metal of all rockets, setting itself on fire before it blasts into space. But I also want to talk about its tremendous contribution to our nation, to exploration, to national security. The Delta IV Heavy still today flies missions that no other rocket can fly. Soon Vulcan will pick up that mantle, and we're going to retire this venerable rocket that has made so much important work for our country. And I want to thank everyone who has been involved with the Delta IV Heavy. We have many employees who are here for the very first Delta IV launch, who are still here now for the last Delta IV launch to send off this great vehicle into its well-earned retirement. Thank you all.
Hi, everyone. I'm now joined by ULA's Launch System Director, Bill Cullen. Bill, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Andrea.
We just saw a really magnificent launch for the last time. This has a little bit of a special meaning to you, is my understanding, because you started your career working on the Delta program.
I did.
So tell us a little bit about what this experience means to you.
Well, so it is bittersweet,
Yeah.
but it's very exciting, and it's a great evolution. And everything that Delta has done, Delta 2, Delta 4, Atlas 5 is being done better on Vulcan. And so this is a great evolutionary step. And it is bittersweet to see the last one, but there's great things ahead. So.
It is. It's exciting, too. I know you and I have worked on Vulcan for a long time. So it's exciting to see it, but bittersweet, obviously, to be the last one. This Delta Heavy configuration is obviously a fan favorite. I know you've seen the most heavy metal of rockets. So definitely a unique and cool configuration. What is it about the Delta Heavy that makes it so special?
Well, so two things. It all boils down to the mission capability, so which is lift capability in many ways, and then on orbit. But the lift capability, the no solid motors, pure liquid, the 3 strap-ons, the slow, majestic liftoff.
It really
is just
majestic.
inspiring.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like it. You know, it makes your heart go.
I really felt it. Like, I feel like more than any other rocket launch, you really feel it
Yeah.
in your bones and in the vehicle. So it's just such a cool thing to see, and kind of sad for it to be the last one. So speaking of last, let's talk a little bit about first. So earlier in January, we experienced our first Vulcan rocket. Went off pretty flawlessly, in my personal opinion, which is kind of a big deal for the first one. We also have an exciting time coming up with the first crew flight test coming up here very shortly, actually. So with all those firsts, you know, we are looking at one of our lasts with the Delta configuration in the Delta Heavy. So what would you say was this program's greatest accomplishment?
The greatest is hard to pick.
Just pick one.
So
or a handful.
so if you look at all the national security things, intelligence, the GPS constellation, everybody uses GPS, right? And you know, the mapping capabilities. I mean, you want to know where you're driving. You want to see what your house looks like in satellite view. Everybody can do that in part because of the satellites.
And every day, we use it every day, right?
Every day it's touched all of us. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's such a cool thing. I mean, working at ULA, you know, just to be a part of that small experience that we have here, but know the huge impact that it has. I mean, just an exciting time.
Yeah, we're enablers.
We are enablers, and we work on rockets, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, that's all the questions that I have for you today, but I do appreciate you joining us, and just really thank you for being here for this exciting last, and looking forward to a year of firsts for us and many, many more coming here in the future.
Absolutely, to mission success.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Well, we're just about to log up here for today, but before we do, I do want to thank Ben Chilton and Rob Gannon for their support of today's broadcast. You can follow more about ULA and learn more about our rockets at ulalaunch.com. However, before we log off, let's look at one more majestic look of that last Delta launch, lifting off the pad for the very last time. Thanks for joining us. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. We have ignition. 2, 1. And liftoff of the final United Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy rocket, carrying Nrol-70 for the National Reconnaissance Office and closing Delta's 6-decade legacy of excellence in space.